çıktı mı?
Right. Oh, that's yeah. I think that's okay.
Yay! Hello everyone. Today we are with you with the 11th work of the CODERUNNER series, and we have just one more.
Yeah. It's been a great journey.
It's great, and today's topic is a database management platform service, Aurora. And let me show you the presentation. And we are here with you with Fatih, as always.
Oh.
Get that one. And let me show you the agenda. Today's topic is Aurora DB, and I'm gonna try to make you a clear introduction to Aurora. What is Aurora? What kind of platform services? And I want to tell you the performance and scalability features of the Aurora, and then monitoring, security, migration features, and then I want to show you how to create a Aurora DB in AWS Console. So let's start. First of all, I want to tell you about Amazon RDS, Relational Database Systems Services. And Amazon RDS is a container services actually. It has 6 database relational service in his platform services. They're all relational databases. They are all fully managed, and they're all have a predictable performance, and they're all fast because of the AWS infrastructure, and they're all simple to use, fast to scale, and just pay what you use. So the 6 database system is MariaDB, Postgres or PostgreSQL, and MySQL, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server. So we have 6 databases, relational database systems, and which one you need in your application, you can use Amazon RDS first, and then choose which one specifically use. So Amazon RDS is the main service that we use, and the 6 database service is the subcomponent of this platform services. So the next slides tell us about what is Aurora in AWS, and why AWS built this kind of new database system besides this 5 or more database engine. So Amazon Aurora, first of all, is a fully compatible with MySQL and PostgreSQL, and it has the main feature of the Aurora is speed. You have a MySQL database, and Aurora, although it is based on MySQL, Aurora is faster than MySQL 5 times.
Yeah, because Amazon actually made some changes, and the main thing is actually the RDS service is always runs the base service under the underneath. The MySQL, it will be MySQL, will be PostgreSQL, but Amazon Aurora is specifically designed to scale and specifically designed to use in serverless architecture services, that kind of services. Because of that, it's actually pretty scalable and faster.
Yeah. And You can use Amazon Aurora in your commercial systems. So it is because it has, it gives you the speed you need. It gives you the availability you need, and it is really simple to use. And it provides us the simplicity and cost effectiveness of an open source database.
Yeah.
And it's as I said, it is fully compatible with MySQL or PostgreSQL, and it has a simple pay-as-you-go pricing model.
Yep.
And it is fully managed service because it's a platform service in AWS, and so you don't need to think about the infrastructure, the operating system managing something, or the patch of the operating system, etc. You don't need to think of this kind of infrastructure thing. It's a fully managed service. Just create your database, put your data, and use it. Amazon Aurora is fast, up to 5 times faster than the standard MySQL database, and 3 times faster than the standard PostgreSQL. And Amazon Aurora is highly available. And if you create an Aurora database, you have 6 copies of data across 3 availability zones in AWS. So it has a low latency, it provides a low latency, and if you need, you can create 15 copies of this database using the replicas of the database. So when your customer access far away from your base, AWS provides the data and the nearest availability zone and region from your database. So when you use, for example, the most commercial database like Microsoft SQL Server or Oracle, and what they give you, Aurora Database gives this kind of features too. And as I said, you can choose cross-region read replicas for faster disaster recovery and data access. And when you need a disaster case, you have a disaster case, and you need to, if you need to restore your database, and you can use the nearest recovery point and bring your data back online. And as I say, bring your data close to your customers' applications in different regions.
Yeah, when you want to do something like that on your own, whether you use SQL Server or MySQL solutions, you have to manage these type of things on yourself.
You need an SQL administrator in your team.
That's a lot of hassle. So this comes with this service.
Yeah. And there is a very simple storage management. You can use a database up to 64 terabytes, and there is a automatic storage scaling. So when you when you reach the maximum size of the database, it is incremented in 10 gigabytes automatically, and there is a continuous backup in AWS, and the system back up your database to Amazon S3, so you can access the latest backup whenever you want. And you can create a user snapshot without any performance lag. So you can use this snapshot to, for example, a migration to another database, or just reporting purposes. The Aurora allows us to create a snapshot of the database. And by the way, besides this kind of features, there is encryption features if you need in your database or application.
Mm-hmm.
Aurora Database provides us an encryption layer. So Aurora DB comes with a monitoring layer also, as the other AWS platform services use. Aurora use the Amazon CloudWatch to monitor the database, CPU utilization, storage, memory, DB connections, and for example, how many selects per second, cache hit rate, hit ratio, etc. You can monitor all of the things by default in your AWS console. Also, if you have a current database in your other on-premise MySQL database, and you want to migrate it to the AWS Aurora, there's a migration tool in AWS. So there's a migration method actually. You can take your snapshot of your database, bring it to the AWS, and then AWS restore your snapshot to an online AWS Aurora cluster.
Yeah.
So it's just one-click migration.
And that actually completes the switch to the Aurora, because Aurora actually supports the MySQL and PostgreSQL APIs natively.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change anything to switch to the Aurora. Just copy your MySQL or PostgreSQL database to the Aurora and be done with it.
Yeah. And if you have a SQL Server or if you have Oracle, what can I do to switch to migrate the Aurora DB? If you have any question like this, there is a database migration services in AWS, and so as you see, Postgre, Oracle, SQL Server, MariaDB, MySQL, you can all use to this kind of database to migrate Aurora DB. And also, Oracle, and especially Oracle and SQL servers, database data types or data structures or objects like store procedures trigger are different than the Aurora's data structure, and there is a migration. How can I say? There's a catalog converter also in AWS. So you give your Oracle or SQL Server data structure, and it converts it to the compatible with Aurora DB. So yeah, MySQL and Postgre is fully compatible, but your Oracle and SQL Server is not fully compatible, but there is a converter here.
Yeah, and you have to actually maybe change the unsupported types, or maybe do something else with that stored procedure, etc. But you can definitely switch and change the Aurora DB.
Yeah, when you use this kind of tool, you still need to have a manual touch. So you need to create manual objects or change a data type. So you can also you can know exactly where the manual edits are needed, and so you can log into the AWSamazon.com/DMS database migration services to read this kind of things. So our presentation is over. Let me create a database in AWS console and see what's the configuration. Here we can tell you. So let's switch to the change the scene first. Yeah, full screen desktop, and then let me open the AWS console. Uh, I'm going to create a database in Aurora, AWS Aurora, and I'm going to show you the configuration and additional settings that AWS provides us. So I'm going to sign in first. It shows us the database migration services in the login screen. Oh. It's a coincidence.
Thanks, Amazon.
Yeah. First, you should write RDS actually, but when you write Aurora in your services search box, it brings us the RDS also, Managed Relational Database Services. So, as I said, RDS is the container service of Aurora. And we're going to choose which database instance between the 6 database servers. So there is a launch database instance button. I click that button.
What just happened?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there is a 6 engine options, and I'm gonna choose Amazon Aurora. Let's investigate what else do we have. MySQL, MariaDB, Postgre, Oracle, and Microsoft SQL Server. And when we choose Amazon Aurora, there is some information here. And let's choose Microsoft SQL Server. Microsoft SQL Server is probably the most used database system by the .NET developers. So when you choose Microsoft SQL Server, there are 4 editions that we can choose: Express, Web, Standard, and Enterprise. And let's continue Aurora. And when we choose Aurora, there are 3 editions. The 2 of them MySQL, 5.6 and 5.7, and the last one is Postgre. Postgre came here after the MySQL. At first, there were just MySQL compatibility, and I'm going to choose MySQL 5.6 and next. And we need to specify the database details. So there are 3 types of 3 capacity type. The first one is provisioned. Actually, the second one is also provisioned. What does it mean? If you choose provisioned, you have to choose a DB instance class. When you publish your web application to the AWS service. What's the name of the service we use to publish our web application? Beanstalk. We choose a server tier, CPU and RAM. And just like this, when you use provision capacity type in Aurora, you have to choose a DB instance class. Actually, it's based on RAM and CPU. So when you need a smaller system, you can choose one virtual CPU and 2 GB RAM. Or up to 64 virtual CPU and 488 GB RAM.
Yeah, it's actually all of the releases services that uses the underlying computer instance. AWS doesn't hide that from us.
Yeah.
Whether it be a Beanstalk or maybe other type of services. it tells us the exactly how it will be use these resources, and just like creating an EC2 instance, you can see the DB instance class here too.
Yeah, and there is also info buttons everywhere. When you click info, it comes a sidebar from the right side of the screen. You can read this information text. When you choose provision with Aurora, parallel query enabled, and you can also choose DB instance, but it comes with a performance improvement with using your analytical of your queries. And the third one is serverless. You don't choose a database instance in serverless, and just you say to the system, my minimum configuration RAM and CPU is this, and my maximum is this, and then you can scale between these two configuration up to the usage. So it's scaled automatically actually. So it is called serverless. Let's click the info. And by the way, serverless feature came previous year. Yeah, it's a new feature of the AWS Aurora. Yeah, and it's only available for the MySQL 5.6 compatibility. Yeah, you can set the minimum and maximum capacity for the cluster and the pauses time. Let's see. I choose serverless, and you have to give your database cluster a name. And let's give name CODERUNNER DB. This name must be unique across all your DB cluster and in your region. We are in Oregon here now, and we have to use specify a master username like SA or something else. And I'm gonna choose CODERUNNER DB. Sorry, CODERUNNER user. And there's a password here. For the sake of the demo, I'm gonna create a simple password. If it accepts. No? Okay. Yeah. And let's before going on, I'm gonna show you when we choose, if we choose provisions, and is there any more configuration? Yeah, there is just one more configuration. It is multi-availability zone deployment. If you want to multi-availability zone and to synchronize your database across different availability zone regions, and you can choose yes or no. So there is no more configuration. Maybe the next page. I'm going to show you. The next, I choose serverless. Yeah, and if you choose serverless, AWS Aurora create database screen asks the minimum Aurora capacity unit and maximum Aurora capacity unit. So it is, I say, it starts with 2 GB, 4 GB RAM, and maximum 64 GB RAM. I don't need more than 64. And additional scaling configuration. If your database has only works between, for example, daylight in your daylight, and it's off at night. For example, it's a database that serves to your company, and your company only has 8 hours working. So at night the database is off. So you can choose it to stop your database service at night. If
your DB instance is actually not used for maybe 5 minutes, then you can maybe stop that. So, that actually affects the cost. At the maximum Aurora capacity units is actually affecting the cost too. So please check these.
It's very important configuration for the pricing. Actually, this is AWS strategy that protect the customer to overreach pricing. So I like that. That kind of behavior attitude of the AWS. And there is a network and security settings. You can choose a virtual private cloud networking environment, and there comes a default virtual private cloud here. So if you don't want to use the default one, you can create a new virtual private cloud, and you can choose a default subnet group, which you can choose your IP range across the DB instance. And if you want to create a security group, you can use the existing one or create a new default one. And there are some additional configurations. There comes a 1-day backup retention period by default, and you can Amazon RDS backup your database and save it for 1 day, and then next day it deletes the old one and store the new one. But you can change the retention period and save your database backups up to 35 days. And if you sync your database, of course, using your storage, you can create limitless data. And there comes a encryption by default. And this is you see the master key to protect your database. And there is a deletion protection. Now, by default, you can't delete your database except you. And the last one, and there is a permission that Amazon RDS requires here to manage the AWS resources. And by default, you give this grant permission to Amazon RDS.
It actually creates
Android.
Maybe lambdas or something in back. So you have to give that permission to this RDS source.
Let's create a database. And by the way, I want to have a look at the other capacity type. If we choose the provision type, I'm going to look at is there any other configuration options that we choose?
Let's see.
So it's creating status. This is create your cluster. Actually, this is create your. If I talk in your Microsoft SQL Server.
Your SQL server.
It's server site. You create a server, and then you can create database in your server. So let's go to the RDS again. Create. Okay, let's click create database. Okay, awesome. Aurora. And then next. This time I'm going to choose provisions. And I choose the smaller one if we forget to delete it. Yeah.
Let's not charge it.
Yeah, the middle one. Okay, create replica in different zone, and let's create CodeRunner DB2.
Okay.
CodeRunner 2 user 2, and
use the same password.
Same password, yeah. Yes, and the first database we created is ready to use. We see the engine version status, size, type, and maintenance things. And when we, okay, I'm gonna click the related cluster and let's see the details and actions that we can do. And you see first of all, you see monitoring feature. You can see your database capacity, CPU utilization, database connection counts, and the other details like the database endpoint that you use to connect this server, and the, for example, virtual private cloud, subnets, and the latest restore time, etc. Your server name, and you can create custom endpoints to access the database, and you can manage the permissions here. And let me back to the other create database options, and yeah, for example, you can change ports in this kind of cluster type, and the 3306 is the default port that Aurora Database uses. When we choose the serverless, this port is used by default too.
But it's when we are specifying the instance, actually, we can change the port if we want.
And when you use serverless, the database is created automatically, but when you use the provisioned type, you can create server and database separately. An encryption option, failover option. Yeah, there's another option that we don't have in serverless. You can use choose the failover options, and it's a priority tier for here. And backup retention. And there's another option, backtrack. You can use backtrack to move your database back to any point of the past. If you have a restore point, you can use the backtrack. And if we enable this backtrack, we can actually put some checkpoints to turn back to that point.
Yeah, system restore point.
Yeah, like this.
That kind of.
Yeah. And you can turn on or turn off enhanced monitoring feature here. And as you see, if you choose serverless, even you don't have to manage this kind of things. They're all comes with the serverless by default, and you just create your database and put your data and manage it. Yeah, you can use your log exports here using Amazon CloudWatch. If you create error logs, you can check it and get the error logs from the Amazon CloudWatch whenever you want. And in the maintenance tab, when you upgrade your database and change your data structure, Aurora DB can automatically increase your minor version and major versions, and you can enable or disable these features.
Yeah, as we said before, there's actually a running instance behind that. Because of that, you can specifically change these configurations to suit your needs. This option gives you a lot more options, but the serverless is actually defaulting some of these to actually do. For instance, cloud batch logs is enabled by default in the serverless because it's actually a running service in the AWS. As a there's no instance behind that because of that. Yeah.
So actually, that's all that I want to show today. Let's go back to the slide and change the scene. This one. Yeah. And I want to say thank you, all of you that watch us. And the next week, the same day, the same hour, we will be presenting the last session for now. We will have another sessions, of course.
Yeah, maybe we will be having this season 2 of the Aurora series with the another topics, maybe not just the AWS, but maybe talking other cloud providers or maybe other type of content.
Or maybe we thought that maybe we can create a project that uses more than one platform services, and we can show you how to combine the AWS platform services in one project.
Yeah.
In the first season, in the first 12 sessions, we try to show you per session and per database and per platform services.
Yeah.
So maybe we can combine it to show how to use this kind of services.
That wasn't actually the 12th session was actually an introduction.
Introduction.
So the second season will be